Ladies and gentlemen, this is a very important segment. Share this segment everywhere with people who think that there could have been obstruction of justice. President Trump categorically did not obstruct justice because he would have been charged with or indicted with the crime of obstruction. Mueller did not have to punt the issue or pass the buck to William Barr. That's a political ploy. After 2 years, there's absolutely no collusion because Clinton purchased the Steele dossier and Trump and CrowdStrike, outsourced by Hillary Clinton, looked at the DNC, but the U.S. government did not. And Papadopoulos' conversation had nothing to do with collusion. He wasn't charged with collusion, Papadopoulos. So he was charged with lying about something inconsequential. But to FBI agents that were engaged in an overt setup, but they say 10 times Trump may have obstructed justice. Well, if there were 10 times, you would think that the combination of all these 10 different incidents would have led to prosecution of Trump. They state during the Mueller report, you know what, the president is not above the rule of law. They set up and framed Trump, and they used the rule of law as a political ploy, as a tactic, as an extension of the Democratic Party, because you had, in my last segment, check it out, you had the Mueller team donated tens of thousands of dollars to Democrats. One attorney was actually an outside attorney, who helped the Clinton Foundation in a court case. So you have a situation here where they didn't indict President Trump. They couldn't find anything in terms of collusion, but they also couldn't find anything in terms of obstruction, and they didn't want to give the collusion issue to William Barr because they had to at least own up to that. That's what their existence, their reason to exist was, finding collusion. And hopefully I'll be published very soon, hopefully, regarding James Clapper. And all of them knowing, even before the election, there was no evidence. But the Mueller team found no evidence of collusion because they fabricated everything, and not only was there no evidence, but there was no reason to believe there would be collusion. It's absurd. President Obama and CNN spent 10 minutes talking about how Trump needs to respect the results of the election and that it's impossible to cheat in a presidential election because everything's decentralized. He stated that this is the same President Obama who said the 80s want their foreign policy back to Mitt Romney, Mittens Romney. But let's look at these 10 examples, CBS right here. So the campaign's response to reports about Russian support for Trump. We have no clue if the Russians wanted to support Trump. The vice president of Facebook states that the goal of the Russian ads was not to support Trump. It was to sow a discord, which we already had. So that's hilarious. And then I think he's like, it's to use democratic institutions. Use our institutions against us. What? We've been using our institutions against each other long before a Facebook ad. Long before Facebook existed. The first instance of possible obstruction, when questions first arose about the Russian government's apparent support for the candidate Trump. This apparent support was alleged in the Steele dossier that was purchased by Clinton. The reports state that while Mr. Trump was publicly skeptical Russia had released emails from the Democratic officials, he and his aides were also trying to get information about any further WikiLeaks releases. So what? That's not illegal. That's not obstruction either. That's ridiculous. And once the election was over, Mr. Trump expressed concerns to advisors that reports of Russian election interference might lead to the public to question the legitimacy of his election. Well, yeah. He has every right to believe that. He had every right to believe that, which is what the goal of the Democratic Party was. Conduct involving FBI Director Comey and Michael Flynn. You're now, again, we're trusting Comey here. This is not obstruction. Okay, gossip from Comey is not obstruction of justice. What kind of imbecile would believe that? All the entire media and all Democrats. Almost all media and all Democrats. So share this segment. This is an important segment. It's Comey's recollection. His memos were classified. He committed an illegal act by sharing classified memos. And then he says, Trump told me to lay off Michael Flynn. They set up Michael Flynn. Michael Flynn's calls were already reviewed. They found no wrongdoing, but they still interviewed him anyway for a perjury trap. Same with Papadopoulos. He didn't do anything wrong. They interviewed him anyway for a perjury trap. You want to know how they got Papadopoulos? Because they said, you contacted Mifsud. By the way, this guy Mifsud is like an intelligence operative for either the British or another country. And Mueller didn't interview him. He didn't interview Alexander Downer. He didn't interview Assange. He didn't interview anyone that he claims was really important in all of this. Because he knows it's fabricated. The whole thing was fabricated. And I love how people oh my God, Mueller. No, now they don't say Mueller time. They're like, oh no, Mueller time. Now it's obstruction. Comey's memos, we have no clue if they're accurate, but we do know they're classified. So he committed a crime. And Flynn had his calls already reviewed. Oh, here, I didn't even tell you. I'm all over the place. I'm reading Papadopoulos' book. You know how they got him? You'll never guess. What did he lie about? They said, you contacted this professor named Joseph Mifsud. Or, you wanted to contact him on, around this time. He said, no, why would I do that? He forgot he had sent one email. They know what the email was about. It wasn't about collusion. It was some inconsequential email because he had known the guy. They said he lied, and then they tried to get him an obstruction of justice for deleting a Facebook account. Clinton deletes 33,000 plus emails. She destroys cell phones. She completely wipes servers clean. And then Chris Wallace, who was so annoying. Chris Wallace is like, the Mueller team, this is what he reads to Giuliani, which was like nauseating of Chris Wallace. He's so annoying. He's like, the Mueller team says that first of all, whenever you hear Mueller team says, just leave the room and you don't need to talk to anybody. Because basically, Deborah Wasserman Schultz says, the Mueller team was about as objective as Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Tom Perez, Donna Brazile, Hillary Clinton. You might as well, when you hear Mueller team, just think Abedin. The Mueller team will say anything to hurt Trump. Anything. They gave tens of thousands to Democrats, and you had only partisans. But the Mueller team says that the president is not above obstruction of justice. The president is not above obstruction of justice. And first of all, the probe was illegal and unlawful and fabricated to begin with. So if he fought against a probe that was unlawful to begin with agents who were now fired or under criminal investigation themselves, then what does that tell you about Trump's behavior? Everyone should behave like Trump when it comes to this. Fight back. If anyone's given a raw deal, you need to fight back in terms of, any legal manner you can, which is what Trump did. Now they're trying to say it's illegal, but that's nonsense. He never obstructed them from attaining anything. He never stopped any part of the investigation. Then Chris Wallace is like, well, they didn't get everything they wanted. Yeah, because they wanted him to simply say, I worked with Putin to buy Facebook ads. That was never going to happen. So they wanted to do what they did to General Flynn, who was an honorable man, and I wrote in the Federalist article that he should be pardoned. They wanted to do what they did to Flynn and what they did to Papadopoulos to Trump. They wanted to get him on some inconsequential, minor, not even lie, like, not being able to recollect something. And then they say, you lied. Meanwhile, Clinton lied throughout the whole investigation. And she wasn't even, apparently she either wasn't under oath, or Peter Strzok was basically like, everything's fine. They could have simply asked, you sent and received classified, did you send and receive classified information? Did you send Mark? Actually, she was already under oath. She perjured herself. So she's already committed perjury. She already stated during congressional testimony she never sent or received any classified information. So it's a game over there. Game over with that. But and then Attorney General Loretta Lynch met with Bill Clinton. We can go on forever. I mean, that was an overt cover-up. That was such a cover-up. It's not going to end well because, see, with Clinton and Democrats, they get away with something and they think they can get away with more things. But at the end of the day, if you don't stop, if you don't end the criminality and the overt fabrication of crimes, if you continue to double down, if you continually engage in the same conduct that led to FBI cover-ups to begin with, then eventually the law is going to catch up with you, even though it really doesn't want to. So the rule of law doesn't pertain to Clinton. She's been getting away with everything. Transferring top secret and special access program intelligence outside of the United States government? Yeah, big crime. But now she fabricated this with the Steele dossier and corrupt FBI officials who wanted her to win. Peter Strzok says, we will stop Trump. And then now they're saying he's obstructing justice. There's not one thing he obstructed. They got everything they wanted, short of a ridiculous interview. And that wasn't an interview with Peter Strzok and Clinton. That nothing was asked there. And anyway, the exoneration of Clinton took place before the interview, which is another lie under oath that Comey told. But anyway, the president's reaction to the continuing Russia investigation. The third instance involves Attorney General Jeff Sessions, who was debating whether to recuse himself from the Russia investigation. Mr. Trump asked White House counsel Don McGahn to talk Sessions out of recusal. So what? The president then asked Sessions to unrecuse himself. So what? Sessions should not have recused himself. He didn't do anything wrong with Sergei Kislyak, and he did so because he was a coward. And anyone who says trust Sessions is feeding you a bunch of bandini. Jeff Sessions is an example of a very cowardly politician. He recused himself, let his deputy attorney general start a special counsel, and they all knew there was no evidence. He was just worried because Andrew McCabe started a criminal probe into Sessions that nobody knew of. After Comey testified to Congress that there was an FBI investigation, Mr. Trump reached out to his intel chiefs to, quote, dispel the suggestion the president had any connection. What's wrong with that? He didn't. With Russia. He had no connections with Russia, Russian intelligence or anything. What's wrong with that? Comey had told Mr. Trump he wasn't under investigation. Against McGahn's advice, the president twice called the FBI director to ask him to say that publicly. I would have called Comey 20 times. It was Comey's job to let the public know he wasn't under investigation. Attorney General Loretta Lynch called Clinton's email probe a matter, and they transferred top secret. She had servers outside of the United States government with top secret intel. She literally could have been selling that to anyone on the planet, and nobody would have known. Literally, not hyperbole. Literally. And even I don't think she did that, because she's too smart to. Clinton lives in the gray area of everything. She lives within the purgatory of truth and reality. And Democrats don't see it. They're like, she's just like Michael Dukakis and John Kerry. She's just another person. Why are you so obsessed? It's like, no, she's running again, and only another Clinton lost. Well, you know what? Look, who knows what will take place with the Democratic Party after Clinton loses again. She's running again, but we'll see. The president's termination of Comey, that is not an example. The IG report states that he was insubordinate numerous times. So share this segment everywhere. That is easy to refute. The guy who covered up Clinton's email debacle by pretending he was Attorney General Loretta Lynch. He wasn't the Attorney General. She was. He was just a corrupt FBI director. And then he goes on to say, well, I didn't trust Attorney General Loretta Lynch. Well, who are you to say who to trust? You're just the FBI director. The appointment of special counsel efforts to remove him. So what? He should have fired Mueller. That would have been fantastic. He should have fired Mueller and said, give me the evidence before you investigate. And I don't really care about the special counsel. A special counsel is a political endeavor. This was a special counsel without the existence of a crime. So it was even more of a political endeavor than anything else. He should have fired Mueller. I mean, it worked out in his favor anyway, but they want him for obstruction of justice. So, I mean, honestly, he should have fired Mueller. Democrats would have imploded. That actually probably would have hurt them in terms of the midterms. Because he could have simply, what he should have done, he would have had a Republican House at that point. What he should have done is he should have said, and the only reason they won midterms is because of a bunch of lies told by AOC and other people. Oh, we'll pass Medicare for all. No, you won't. Liar. And Trump might have colluded with Russia. He should have fired Mueller and said, great, you know what? You're upset I fired Mueller. Show me the evidence. If you don't have evidence, who cares what you think? I guess it worked out in his favor, but it did work out big time in his favor. So he did the right thing. But if he fired Mueller, who cares? Mueller's part of the executive branch. He has every right to fire people in the executive branch. It's not obstruction of justice when there's no crime. There was no crime committed. They don't even know of a crime committed. And they can't even, the ODNI and DHS reports have confidence assessments. They have confidence assessments. They don't have categorical claims based on evidence. They even say that in warranty disclaimers. Efforts to prevent public disclosure of evidence. Here we go. Oh, the Trump Tower meeting. Oh, this is great. What Democrats have done is they've created mythology. And then when you pierce the mythology, they say, how dare you? Nobody cares about the Trump Jr. meeting. If it's about Clinton's emails, he should have obtained them. Because they were emails stored on servers outside the U.S. government that were apparently, her deleted emails were about yoga. So what's wrong with yoga emails? Aha! It wasn't about yoga email. Or what was it? Well, is she lying or not? Because she never sent or received anything classified, so what's the problem? What's the problem? You wanted Russia to help? Yeah, well, Clinton purchased a Steele dossier. The Steele dossier was composed with one Russian intelligence officer and Russian assets and all this stuff. So don't talk about that. But like it's like hilarious. They tried to get him on they tried to get Trump Jr. and Trump on perjury traps related to a meeting that was set up. Zero links, by the way, between Natalia Veselnitskaya and Vladimir Putin. How do we know? Because, guess what? Attorney General Loretta Lynch and President Obama's administration allowed Veselnitskaya into the country. Gee, I wonder why. Why would they allow a spy into the country? Give me a break. And she met before and after the meeting with Fusion GPS's Glenn Simpson. When Trump really wants to turn the tables, he has all the cards, declassify everything. I mean, it's game over. Further efforts to have McCann deny that the president had ordered him to have the special counsel removed. That's not obstruction of justice. This is gossip. Conduct towards Flynn, Manafort. Okay, you know what? Conduct involving Michael Cohen. Yeah, who cares? Michael Cohen is a liar. Michael Cohen, by the way, debunks the Steele dossier. Has stated numerous times, I was never in Prague. It's kind of hilarious, too, because they're like, could he have been in Prague? It's like, no, he wasn't in Prague. My God almighty, he wasn't in Prague. He wasn't speaking to intel chiefs in Prague. It never happened. Never happened. Sorry. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, these instances or these examples of obstruction of justice are hilarious. They're not really examples of obstruction of justice. What Trump did is he simply didn't care about the Mueller probe. He didn't stop them from obtaining anything. And Democrats are appalled that he actually fought back. They're like, you denied the saintliness and the you didn't revere Mueller. It's like, no, we didn't. Well, what's wrong with that? You had the audacity to even think of firing Mueller? He didn't even fire Mueller. And they're like, oh, you thought about it and you said you were going to. This is a bad thing. Nothing. Obstruction of justice is when you prevent law enforcement from carrying out their duties. He didn't prevent, and in fact, they were more maniacal and rabid after he let Comey go. They were like, oh my God, the walls are caving in. Even Andrew McCabe in testimony stated categorically, nothing has changed. When Comey left, he said, nothing has changed. We're fine. We're continuing the investigation. And even Comey said, yeah, you can fire him if he wants to. Share this segment everywhere. This is hilarious. They spent 2 years framing him and setting him up. Now they're saying he obstructed the setup. It's like with the Uma Abedin laptop. They're like, oh, we have to write a Comey letter. Why? Because we failed with our cover-up. There was so much criminality with Clinton. And then Chris Wallace was like, well, what's the problem? I mean, Trump said something, and then Giuliani's like, yeah, she destroyed actual physical evidence. He's like, well, are you now you're the decider now? It's like, it was so annoying. Anyway, my Patreon is below if you want to support my voice long term. Your support via Patreon is very, very, very important and appreciated, and allows me to continue being just the annoying voice that I've been for a long time, or for a while now. And share my writing in the Jerusalem Post. It's below, the Daily Caller, and in the Federalist, especially my latest Federalist article about Comey, Strzok, and McCabe being charged under a specific legal statute. Thank you, everyone. That's all in the pinned comment. Thank you.